Okay, so dear friends, I want to say welcome to everybody who joined us in this Zoom and also who decided to look at us on the Facebook pages. And also welcome everybody who will see these meetings later on YouTube channel of Embrace. My name is Tatiana Koval, and I am head of jury of International HR Award Embrace. This is a award. We were born in Uzbekistan, in the heart of Central Asia, but now we are working to implement a lot of different practices worldwide from different countries and bring them to Central Asia to help companies from Central Asia develop their HR practice. And today we invited two great experts to join us and share their experience. Today we will discuss a very important topic because the Embrace previously we call this award is Central Asia Employer Brand Award. So after that we start to use the short name. So the employer brand was a heart of this award because a lot of companies start to work with employer brand from the awards. They think, oh, we have a great practice. Maybe we should join some awards. And after that, we start to thinking more about the employer brand and work with it. Today, the two experts from Europe. It's great. The second time when we have a great experts from Europe, because I think it's really important for us. This is the heart of best HR practice. I think, like USA, is the next step for us. Due to time difference, it's sometimes more difficult to connect these United States. But I hope in the future we also have possibilities to invite some participants from this country too. But here today we will discuss very important topics. Global recruitment and global employer brand strategy. We have two experts with us. Renita Kasper, I hope some of you know her as a member of jury of the Embrace for some years. And I know what Renita also a member of jury of different HR awards. And he's sharing her experience for a lot of years with us. And now he's a director of global recruiting and company at Testlio. Renita originally, as you know, from Estonia, but now she's working also in Spain. So today, Renita enters us from Sevilla. And the second expert is Marian Jarzak. He's from Germany, but as you know, he is employer brand partner of the company Vinted. So I hope you have a possibility to tell us a little bit about your companies, about Testlio, about Vinted, because I could say what in Central Asia now it's not so well-known brands, but I hope in the future you are also could enter the Central Asia markets because you're like a global recruitment, global employer brand. So this is your first time you have enter this market, and maybe some good talents could be interested to work for your company in companies in the future. And so now we are starting to discuss the important topic, global recruitment and employer branding strategy. We decided to do it like usual in a format, a small 20 minutes presentation from our speaker, and then some questions. If you join us in Zoom, you can write your questions, and after that I will ask our presenters to answer these questions. And then the second presenter. We decided that there's a woman at first. So the first speaker will be Renita Kasper, Director of Global Recruitment at Testlio company. Renita, nice to see you there. Microphone is yours, so welcome.
Thank you, Tatiana, for introduction and inviting me. And I do suggest that Marian to visit Uzbekistan. It's actually amazing country, one of my best travels, and very thankful for Tatiana and her family. They kind of drive me through the country for all tour. And I visit also Samarkand and Bukhara, and I think that it's absolutely beautiful country, and I'm been honored to be part of Embrace and the jury work and all what we can actually help out the Central Asia as well with our knowledge or something we already have experienced, have gone through, can be also useful for others to learn that. I'm up to definitely sharing my experience. And I will introduce myself and share the presentation as well. I tried to keep it like short. There is like main ideas to go, and we can actually go more deeply with the questions later on. Now I do think this, I'm gonna do this presentation sharing. Please say me that if you hear the current scenario, because me and the Zoom are not the best friends. Normally, if the picture is missing, my voice is missing, something is missing, getting me this kind of anxiety attack before normally talking in a Zoom. But I will try now. It's going on. Let me see. No, and I have, of course, hundreds tabs open as normally recruiters do. Now you do hear me, I guess.
Yes, we hear you. We see your presentation, but it's better maybe making full screen. Oh, that's great.
So you have it full screen. Yeah. Okay, it's working. It's working. That's good. Actually, just Tatiana already presented me just few words also. I have, I think, right now already 20 years of experience in recruitment and employer branding. I normally don't write it like that in my LinkedIn because nobody would like to hire such an old person to the startup. Is it that? That's a show. I do work in startup. Happy to be here today, and actually together with Marian, with whom we met actually in Berlin, and we both actually do present Baltic startups. That Testlio is founded in Estonia, and if I'm wrong, Vinted is from Lithuania. That we actually coming from the same place, but I think we're both doing global recruitment and employer branding. What more, I actually have built and worked more than 7 years in agency, from 1 to 9 persons, and one of the biggest agencies in Estonia. Then I moved to Berlin and worked to language app Bubble, around 700 people, around 3 years. Then I was lured back home to help like a local community and Testlio. And now I'm here in Seville, Spain. I'm just working remotely from here because Testlio is remote and distributed company, and we can work whatever place we want, and can work around also that where we work, and it's not that I need to work from Tallinn, Estonia. Little bit then about Testlio as well. There is some numbers. When I started in Testlio, we had 100 people, and the company wasn't so global at all. That was the challenge was actually given to me, that, hey, Renita, would you like to come here and help us with global recruitment? And I did do global recruitment also in Bubble, but we did it other way around. We mostly did relocate everybody like globally to Berlin. Now, the challenge was different in Testlio's case, because Testlio is fully distributed company. We have now people already in, I think, 43 different countries is the right thing to say. And yes, they do work in their homes, in the cafeteria, wherever they do like to work. And for me, it's been very interesting and very exciting to understand that, how you find somebody in Trinidad and Tobago. I couldn't ever think of that I have so exciting possibility to work on something like that. How we know what talent likes there? Do we even have talent in that country? How we know how to approach this talent, what this talent likes, what are actually the benefits in those countries, what's missing, what not, is all a big question mark. And especially if you want to do it globally, how would you know where to start? I think it's the main question. But I'm very impressed some of those countries here, and the team we working on that, or recruitment team, has together with me 8 people. Plus we have employer brand manager in the house as well. And I think that I really need to give kudos to my team, who have been always innovative, looking for possibilities, try to understand how things work, test and try again. and really up to the challenge and see what's possible, what's not, and how we do it, what's the solution. Like one country here, Mauritius, is actually bring up from one of my recruiters. She was so excited saying that, oh, hey, look, I find a new country where is excellent talent for us. And she just take it on, make the research, and here we are. We have one person in that country as well. Little bit more numbers from this. I've been in Testlio now 1 year and I think 10 months. We have grown for 220 people. We are actually very proud of our numbers and how we also dealing with diversity matters in our company, and it's very important to us. And you can also see our Glassdoor rating and recommendation number here, that everything which is linked to people is very important to us. And we do build every process we have linked to that. It would be human. I do like robots though, but everything robots would give us time to be human after all, and build everything linked to those people on those countries. Like, why to do it anyways? I said, why bother? Why to build this kind of global diverse company? Because it's quite of like complex thing to do. First of all, that you need to understand how it all works, that sometimes you don't even understand how it works in own country, and it's complicated enough. Why not now to complicate it more like 40 different countries, people with a different cultural backgrounds, how organizations should work, or how they have used to work. I just would say that we couldn't ever build Testlio as big it is, or as big it is, or as great talent we have, if we would just stick with Estonia. Then it would be something that, oh, I'm going to fetch it from a neighbor. To just get it from your neighbor, you need to always give a higher package, more benefits, more money, and it's not sustainable, and it actually ruins the market. Why not to see where the talent really is and how to hire this talent? I think talent is everywhere globally. We just not having creating possibilities to this talent in very many countries worldwide. And top of that, if you have global diverse company, it's creates you so much different opportunities. Like diversity grows without not pushing it so much. Every new person who joins bring themselves to the work, but also their culture, their views, and start to also educate other people. And other people actually start to like understand how to work somebody different from myself, and how interesting it is, how much it can teach you new stuff, and how it is learning process around that. And I would say the first thing for me is always, I'm my first education a school teacher, let's say that. That I would always say preparation is the key. Do your homework. I think the first thing is always really answer the question why we want to do that, and what is the things we then need to plan, think, and discuss. I think both things like global recruitment and global employer branding, also the company need to be ready later on to really hire and really be the place where this global talent can be also feel belonging and feel that they are weighted, they are accepted, they belong there. Meaning that if the why is in place, we need definitely talk about that. Are our culture ready? Are our company ready? Do we really want to do it, and why we're doing it? And then create awareness and education in your own company. Because I do not think that it's not ethically right to hire somebody just to tick the box and be then very grateful and thinking that, okay, this person who joins the company, they need to change, but we don't need to do any work as a company. That we can't actually put it all on of this global talent. Both sides, of course, need to do work. Both sides need to understand how we can collaborate the best. We can't just expect if we hiring distributed ways all over the globe, that the person who sits in other company in their desk or cafeteria one day, the next day when the person joins the Testlio, overnight the person have changed, I don't know, Estonian, let's say, for example, that that the person talks like me and walks like me, and that's okay. That we need to do the learning as a company, need to understand why we're doing it, and we need to also start to research the market, ask the questions. LinkedIn is a good place. You will all have connections. If I would like to understand how Uzbekistan talent market works, of course, I would write the message to Tatiana for that. The same works in Mexico. The same works in Argentina. You might not know those people. It's fine. And it's very okay to still message them and ask advice. I actually never turned out of advice of fellow people working in employer branding and recruitment globally. They're all pretty helpful to give you insights or links or places you could actually find more information. If you already have people in those markets, please ask them, because sometimes we overlook it and we try to I don't know, create the wheel when we actually can go and ask for people. If you would like to like to change a work now, one day or another, where you go, what you look, what you see in this job ads, what actually important for you. For example, the benefits can be very different things in different countries. Just a practical example, vacation days. We in Europe are very used for huge amount of vacation days. It's normal to us. It's not a perk as like that anymore. But if, for example, if you go from countries, it can be a huge perk. For example, in Mexico, there is a 7 vacation days and you need to work 1 year to earn that. You should then talk about those perks differently and make the employer branding campaign around that. I think it's also one obvious thing. You need to actually understand what makes you different, what makes you unique. And I do believe that you can't hit every market same ways. You first need to understand what your target group, your talent in that market really needs. And then I think tweak your campaigns differently for that certain market. Because also different markets are really used to different communications from the company size, and they're looking different things. That if you don't understand what your talent really is about, then you can just waste money to create campaigns and use tools and make job ads and so on. And nobody's interested and nobody's applying, and you don't understand why. I think in current situation with world is, we really need to show as a company how we care about you as our talent, future talent, the candidate, what is the candidate experience, how we care the company inside, what is actually our culture, and how we then talk about this culture outside. It is very important, and it's getting more and more important that people asking questions around how you deal with those kind of questions. People asking that, how many layoffs have you had? How you deal with offboarding, for example? What is your retention rate? What is your actually biggest challenge is, keeping the culture? In a remote setup, so how you engage with people, that people wouldn't feel alone and left out in their, houses somewhere. I think it's also very important to show all that to those new markets. What's into then? I think it's also something we need to always think and forget about, that over job ads and campaigns is a lot about us, how cool are we, but less about them, what actually people really want to understand and what's important to them. I think all the communication should go with that perspective. It's important that we're important, but it's more important to understand what actually again our talent wants and talk with them in a language they understand. Show your talent as much you can. I think it's growing and growing on that you need to help your own inner talent to talk about your company and themselves. people often, especially in Estonia, and I think maybe Marian, we can actually talk about Germany as well. They often think that, oh, I'm so shy. What I have to say that I don't want to go there in a LinkedIn and what I talk about. But actually, people want to know, and it's very important with whom I will work in the future. Who is my manager? Who are those people? I mean, before I started rather Bubble or Testlio, I stalk everybody, like every single profile. I wanted to understand who they are, what they believe, what they share in LinkedIn, in their Facebook, everywhere. Whatever information I could get my hands on, because it's very important decision to change a job. And I would like to work in a place when there is other nice people working, but also where I can actually learn, when I can grow. Be agile. I mean, if you are up to going in a global market, I think you kind of need to be, because you are working in a different countries, in a different time zones. You need to work asynchronously. You need to put all those processes in place, how it's gonna be, and how can people collaborate with each other, which also would be giving them still work-life balance somehow, because flexibility and working at home and distributed ways can very often comes with that people actually do work too much, do work too long hours, and do always work. I think it's very important to understand that how you can build really work around your life, that there is no differences, but you have all the time to deal with also things which are important to you, important how you can rest, where is my free time, when I can spend time with my family. And as I'm traveling here, that I would also like to see how Seville looks like, not just go on a different country and work 10 hours. And get your storytelling right. I mean, just talk who you authentically are. I think it's important to be yourself, also with your challenges. Very often I see that companies somehow want to hide your challenges, and also in interviewing process. I try to be pretty blunt on that and say that this is the challenge and that's why we need you. I don't have ever seen a person who wants to have a job when they can't bring value. And this is something we can actually implement in our recruitment process, in our employer branding process. I need you to resolve that. I need you to fix that. I need you to bring it to another level. This is an interesting task. Like, for example, for me was interesting task in Testlio that can we do that? Can we recruit globally in all of those countries, being situated, for example, most of my team is in Estonia. Is it possible to, grow the company twice and not have offices at all? Is it going to work? But it's interesting challenge. I'm up to that. That's why I took the job. Always think of your inner culture and company. What are you up? You never should actually forget your company's inner culture, and that this goes out. We all know how it goes with the negative information, negative feedback, anything like that. It just grows like snowball. That you need to work in first and then you can go out. Or I would think that if you work very strongly with your own people, take care of them, work those topics, they will tell outside as well. They will start to share their stories. One thing what I just want to say here is that you just can't do outside campaigns, just the beautiful marketing campaigns. It's just not going to work, because we do hire smart people, and smart people will understand. Even they took the bait. Okay, let's say they started in your company 2-3 weeks and they already understand that it smells, it's rotten, and something is sold for them, which is not true. Meaning it does actually go in retention, and then we're surprised why these people leave, or why they didn't understand what they should do, or that they are disappointed. In the case they should actually be more and more engaged, that, oh, look at that, I'm in a cool place, it's a cool job, cool challenge, good colleagues. But now other way around process start happening, and it's infectious. That's the most like terrible thing. It's like a virus that if you don't catch it in the right time, it's gonna grow. In my opinion, every employer branding campaign, every recruitment campaign, job ad would give you an honest picture why you should opt in and why you should opt out. And it's very okay to opt out. I think we should even do, and Testlio as well, harder job on that to help people to opt out. Not all companies are not for everybody. And we need to be clear about that, what it means to work in Testlio, what it means to work in your company, that people could make a conscientious decision about that. Is it me or is it not to me? And we need to help on that and be honest to saying that what is it like to work in this company, or what is it actually like this work in this job, what is day to day in this job like really like. I mean, just for my previous company, we had this kind of discussions that is it good to have 20,000 applicants? It seems great, you have so many applicants, it's cool, everybody wants you. But then in that company, in this 1 year, we only hired 200 people per year. Imagine now, everybody else, we said no. Even you do a best rejection letter ever, or say it very nicely, or personally for everybody, it's still a no. Because I think that employer branding and recruitment campaigns should work on that we need to get more right candidates in the pipeline, and there not need to be many. That's not the goal. First, still, because I'm very excited to hear Marian speak. Check your brand online, Google yourself, Google your company, check the Glassdoor in Germany, Kununu, everything what's there. Check out what people say about you and do something about it with this feedback. And don't just hide it that, there was one like a pissed employee or the candidate. Might be, might not. But I think feedback is still a feedback, and you should deal with that and see that, can you do better? Is it something we can fix? For example, Glassdoor, lots of people really read about that. And they don't know, is it real? Was this person, what's happened? They just take it has the truth out there, a little bit salt on that. But if the same thing continues to repeat, I would say there might be something, and it actually can influence decision about your company, your employer brand, offer acceptance, and everything like that. We already talked about that, how you treat your candidates. I think the candidate experience is basic line of every employer branding and recruitment process. That what is the touch point, how you treat them, is it clear, is it structured? You can actually work so much around that and also communicate about outside. And don't forget your competitions in those markets. Go and check out, make research what other people do in that market. First is that you can learn what is happening there. Other thing is that, okay, look, all of them doing that. Maybe I now gonna do something different. Because important is that people actually notice your brand, build the trust, build the relationship with your brand. Like when we went to the LATAM countries, it was very important. We first didn't get any applicants or any notices even, because people didn't know who we are. We don't have entity, we don't have offices there. Are this company even real? Are they fake? How we build relationship with those countries, how we build the relationship with this talent. And now watch what everybody does and do something different that they would notice you. And I think I always try to say that recruit with the heart. They are people, they are human we're talking about, that let's use technology, robots where they're good at, and let's bring soul in our employer branding and recruitment processes. And that's all from me. We're still hiring. If you like distributed remote work, then check us out or write me. It's this kind of publicity moment. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Renita. To all our participants in Zoom, you can type your question on the chat. So I'll ask Renita, but firstly, I want to ask one question. In the beginning, I talk a lot about two important topics. Third topics, but you need to find appropriate person based on their values. From our side, you talk a lot about diversity. What is important to have a diversity in your team. How do you manage with two different topics to keep something common in your team? What makes them a whole team, especially in the situation what we are not working in one particular office, because it's a little. I think it's a little much more difficult to make the sense of common if you are not working together in one office to come them together. And another way, how do you use what the difference, because Ria said that different background, for example, people from Europe and people from Mexico, I think the same from India, Trinidad, Tobago, and so on. How do you manage with these two important topics in your recruitment and employer branding process?
Yeah, we do. It's a good question. We do lots of trainings, and we do lots of like awareness training. For example, we have also building a hiring manager process, which we call license to hire, to have really topics covered about also diversity, differences, how we deal with that. And we really want to like next year go even deeper on that to understand that. I think the question is why, which need to be answered for a company side and leadership side, why we actually need those people in a diverse backgrounds, what is giving to us really that, how it's create innovation, how it makes us more productive, and then how to put it together. Like it's something that everybody else can do to be more like, I would say open-hearted for a situation. But I think the company need to do this awareness training that it's not like, I understand, okay, this person like, talks differently, or let's say person is late for a call, which is common in countries that, okay, they're not on time and somewhere, that how we work together, we try to have those rules of alignment and collaboration in a place, and very understandable to each other that, okay, that is actually productive. That is actually how we work in Testlio, even though we situated globally or doing different things. And in recruitment process, we very strongly think in a values interview, because it's not very important that, where are they from, as long our values match. That is like most important. We do not actually screen for culture fit or culture add. We very strongly want to talk about values, that people wouldn't hire, it's always easier to hire somebody and talk with somebody who, looks like us or talks like us or have same background, but that wouldn't happen, that we would challenge ourselves, that why I think like that, why I have bias for that I need to work on myself, that its awareness helps actually.
Great, Renita, one question from our participant, the question in the chat. But I believe that any employer branding initiative could be crimped by poor employee engagement on the inside. Any tips of how to get leader to prioritize employee engagement as a business net, especially with minimal access to said leadership? So let's share your experience and your ideas, maybe not only from Testlio, but maybe on your previous background, how to engage your leaders as a part of your employer branding process. So because I absolutely agree, the participant, but if they are not in one boat with HR, it could be some problems after the candidate become an employee of the company. What should we do and how we can do this?
Yeah, thank you for your question. And I guess probably Marian can also tap into that question. I guess that again, it's the same question. It's a why question, why we do something. Meaning that you can build a case around that, why employer branding is needed and why it's even monetary wise, very wise decision for a company, meaning talking about our brand and getting best talent in. I mean, we're talking about best talent. Best talent can actually raise or fail for company. Doing wrong decision about the talent or not doing it correctly could actually mean that someday you don't have a company at all, or all of your culture is rotten if you don't doing good assessment in a process, or you don't understand what your values are and how actually really screen the values. I would rather like build a business case in here and show some numbers what it actually means to not work with employer brand. I think Marian would actually, maybe you can jump in already, because I think he has the like even best knowledge than me in that topic.
No, don't say this. You
I
said
need to say that.
very smart things. I would actually agree with Renita there, and I also agree with Uva, who asked the questions that if you don't have great employee engagement, also employer branding will probably not work in the end of the day. I would actually just echo this what Renita said, that you need to build a business case, and I think I would challenge also a little bit this minimal access to leadership, because I think this is your job to get somehow access to the leadership. And I think it was very smart, what Renita said in her presentation, that she always stalks everyone before she joins the company. And I also, I'm also a heavy stalker, so I'm also always trying to find out how people take what they like, or also how they communicate. I think there's also the saying, you need to talk executive, or you need to talk exec. And I feel like, executive are sometimes so different of what they like or how they talk. Some people really are into numbers, so a lot of executive are into numbers. Some are maybe a little bit more fluffy, they like the stories. And I think that it's your job to find out, what they like, how they communicate, and then build this business case, with this way of how they communicate, so that you can basically find the buy or get the buy-in from them. Because I think you really need, especially for a topic like employer branding, you need to get like the buy-in from the executive or leadership, because otherwise you won't unfortunately get any budget, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, thank you, Marianne, to join our conversation, because I think it's very important not only make a presentation, but discuss especially some very important hard topics, how to engage it. So I think all the times we discuss it on every HR meetings, because it's really a challenge for all HRs to give understanding what the people could be the first, especially in some businesses, which mostly based on the people. What is the main job? To come and talk with the people, to manage them, to help them to do the right job for the company. So, Marian, now the sense is yours. Marian Jarzak is the employer brand partner of company Vinted. I hope we will have possibility to also need a little bit about the company. Please welcome to share your presentation.
Thank you so much, Tatiana. I will just quickly share my screen. I hope it works. So I guess now you see my screen.
Yeah, it's great.
Perfect. So yeah, thank you so much, Tatiana, for the invite. I'm really impressed and really blessed to be here. So thank you so much for that. I also Googled yesterday Uzbekistan to, just look at some pictures. So definitely, it's now on my bucket list. I just need to find out actually if I need a visa, or if I can, somehow travel there without a visa. And also, Renita, really enjoyed your presentation. I still remember the first time I met Renita in Berlin. It was pre-COVID time, and there were like meetups every evening. I enjoyed so much listening to her presentation, and it was so much fun. So really great to be here again. again on the stage with Renita. Today, I would like to introduce you a little bit how I see, how you can make employer branding work with implementing a holistic employer branding strategy. To just a small disclaimer, I'm really more, an expert in the field of employer branding. I didn't work so much in recruiting, even though I know it's, closely connected always, but my expertise really is more in employer branding. So maybe a little bit about me. So I'm currently based in Berlin, and as Tatjana said, I'm working at Vinted, which is the largest C2C marketplace for secondhand fashion in Europe, and is Lithuania's first unicorn. So they are super proud of that. The majority of employees are, of course, based in Vilnius, so in Lithuania, but Vinted also has offices in Berlin, Amsterdam, and Paris. And I'm working there in an employer brand team of 4 people. They are all Lithuanians, so I'm the only non-Lithuanian in this team, which is really also a new experience for me, I must say. Because, before in Berlin, of course, I worked more in teams with a lot of diversity, of course, Germans, but we also have a lot of people from UK and US. And now I have a Lithuanian boss I'm reporting to. So it's really a new experience also for me. I'm actually coming from the field of journalism. So in my first career, I was working as a journalist. So I studied journalism and then was working for different newspapers and television channels in Germany and Armenia also. So I lived also in Turkey, Armenia, and Denmark. And after some time, I realized, I'm also really interested more to work on the corporate side. So I started working in PR and corporate communication, but always felt like I'm missing a little bit like this business knowledge, so to say. So I went back to university, studied business and corporate communication. And after that, I worked mostly in scale-ups in Berlin, and also a little bit in corporate. So maybe Beiersdorf, you know, also in Uzbekistan, who produced this brand Nivea, Labello, and these cosmetic brands. But after that, I worked mainly in scale-ups and a lot in fintech companies, so VCs and other fintech companies. To be honest, I never, had the aspiration to work in fintech, but it just happened to me. And now I'm working at Vinted since a little bit more than a year. And something I'm also really, really passionate about is actually psychology. So I started last year a new studies, a master's in psychology, because, I was just like working from home. In Germany, we had very strict COVID regulations. So at one point I was like sitting at home and I was like, okay, I really love my job, but I'm answering emails, I'm on calls, and I'm answering Slack messages. And I was just missing a little bit this academic challenge I had before in university. So I decided to go back to university and started this master in psychology. And right now I'm at the stage where I need to think about my topic, about my dissertation. So I'm looking right now into different theories of workplace gossip, because I find it really interesting, because we all know, especially before the pandemic, gossip is a thing in companies, but there is also really academic research about this, how this develops, if there are people with certain personality traits who are more into workplace gossip. So this is really something I'm also really, really interested besides employer branding. I also prepared some slides about Vinted. I tried to not create a sales pitch, so it's not so many slides about Vinted. But as I mentioned to you already, Vinted is the largest C2C marketplace for secondhand fashion in Europe. So we have more than 75 million registered users on the platform, where you can basically buy and sell all kinds of clothes, or also other items like books or toys for children. Something which we launched last year is called Vinted Go, which is basically a carrier who supports you on sending your packages to somewhere you want to send it. We just launched it in France, and we are placing there a lot of these lockers where you can basically pick up or bring your packages if you want to sell them. As I mentioned, there are more than 75 million users on the forum. We live in, like you can see here on this little map in green, so to speak. And we are, but employee-wise, as I mentioned, we have offices in Lithuania, Germany, Netherlands, and Paris. And the majority of the workforce, since it's a Lithuanian company, is of course based in Vilnius. So I think in total we are 1,500 employees, and I think like 1,100 roughly are based in Vilnius, and then in Berlin I think we are 200 to 250, and then there are also some people in Amsterdam as well as in Paris, so in France. Vinted's vision is actually to make a world where all consumption is sustainable. And, before creating this presentation, I was really thinking, okay, should I put in this slide or should I not? Because I know that especially a lot of European companies are at the moment riding their sustainability wave and are saying, okay, we want to create everything sustainable. So it's also, I know, really a buzzword. But I can assure you, since I work at Vinted, you really feel this. It's really in the DNA of every employee, and they are really also, we are really trying to make a difference there, because if you look normally at the market for clothes, it's such a market which creates so much pollution. So I think if we just all make a little effort and make an aim to maybe work clothes a little bit longer or give them a second life, how we try to do it at Vinted, this really makes a great impact already. So, but enough about me and about Vinted. Let's talk about employer branding. So for me, employer branding personally is not a standalone thing. In my career, I often experienced that, unfortunately, departments or teams often really work in silos. So there's an employer brand team, there is a recruitment team, there's an internal comms team, there's an employee engagement team or a PR team, consumer brand team. And somehow you always struggle to work more closely together. But from my experience, especially, internal comms and employee engagement, as well as employer branding, really share this common core. And there are a lot of synergy effects, which you can basically use to leverage, let's say it like this, for your employer brand. Because I also believe, in the end of the day, if you work closely together in internal comms as well as employee engagement and employer branding, that's why I so love this question from Uwe, who said that, if there is not great employee engagement internally, you can also not create great employer branding. So I totally would sign this on the spot here. Because I think, if you work closely together, you can, first of all, save resources in terms of, think about like shared content you are producing and then using internally as well as externally. You can, of course, increase efficiency because you know what, your peers in the other teams are doing. And you can, of course, in the end of the day, also decrease costs. And this is something I really always aim for in all the setups I work in. And I think, if you aim for this, you can really create something great. And, in smaller companies, it's just, easy to go to your colleague who's responsible for internal comms or PR, and, you just go for an informal coffee and you start the conversation. Whereas I understand that in large organizations, so for example, also Vinted, where it's, you know, it's not a startup anymore, it's a scale up, it's becoming a grown up. It's of course more difficult. You have more conversations, you have more alignment, you have more co-creation to do to identify these synergy effects and to you know really start using them. As I mentioned already briefly, I really think that employer branding comes from the inside to the outside, basically. So if there is not a great internal communication or employee engagement, you won't, you know, get a great employer brand, because people, you know, will be very hesitant to go out there to their friends or to their peers and say, hey, it's really great to work at this company, if they don't feel valued from inside. So for example, I think a great example is always that when I started my career, and I must say nowadays it doesn't happen so often, but when I started and worked in PR departments, I often felt like that, you know, PR was very much externally focused. So they, you know, aimed to bring something in the news and it was published, but internally nobody knew about this, for example. And of course, this, you know, in the end of the day, it's not great, because people don't feel onboarded. They don't feel aware of this. So it's not great internal communication. And if this happens, you know, it's harder, of course, to establish a great employer brand if they don't feel like valued from the inside, actually. So just here, I just want to emphasize that for me, employer branding really comes from the internal to the external, so to speak. I think it doesn't have any values to create, you know, great employer branding campaigns with agencies where you spend millions of euros or dollars. But then internally, it's totally different. I think this is also something we need. Mentioned already, that you need to communicate very authentically, very honest, because you know, a new hire will immediately realize in the first 2 weeks, not probably even earlier, that it's probably really different internally, that, you know, what recruiters told him or what any campaigns showed to them externally. One quote I also really like is from Tim Halloran, who is a brand marketer, actually more in the consumer brand field. He said, we don't just consume brands or interact with brands, but we actually also engage in relationships with them. And I think it's a really great, quote, because especially nowadays in this remote world, or in this world where we can probably all go on workation and work from different places, it's really vital that, you know, we have a relationship also with our workplace, and especially with the peers we are working with. And I think you would all agree with me that nowadays, you know, it's not just colleagues, simply colleagues you're working with, but often, you know, these people also become friends. So you know, friendship is also a kind of relationship you are engaging then. So I think this is just something I really want to emphasize here. And now, if we are looking at employer branding, one of my really, really favorite books, and which I would really encourage everyone to read or buy, very good, Tatiana is already taking a picture, is the book called The Power of Moments by Chip Heath and Dan Heath. It's actually two brothers. And it's also more a book, to be honest, being focused on like marketing, so consumer marketing, but I think, you know, employer brand actually can learn always a lot from marketing, especially consumer marketing. And they created these 3 so-called power moments: elevation, pride, insight, and connection, where they said, okay, in all marketing you're doing, you need to think about these 4 moments and try to implement at least one moment in your marketing campaign. So for example, just to give a quick example, I know we are running a little bit out of time, is about elevation. They made the example of Yum Brands, which in the US is, for example, Taco Bell or Burger King. So these fast food restaurants, where they said when these people or this company hires new people or new employees, they roll out the red carpet in their headquarters, and all their managers are standing at the side, and they give them high five when onboarding these new workers. And now you might think, yes, maybe it's a little bit over the top. I mean, of course, you know, it's a US thing, maybe in the end of the day, but I think it's really a great moment where you see that they think how they can create this elevation in onboarding their new employees in the end of the day. And I think, you know, for employer brand, of course, it's also a great experience, because these people will go to their friends or go to their peers and say, hey, you know, I got this new job at Burger King, and now, you know, my boss gave me red carpet, they gave me high five. It's something really, I think, which sticks in the mind of people, and which they will, of course, tell to their friends. And then, you know, positive word of mouth always generates a lot of great impression also for companies. So when I think about employer branding, I always think about how I can, you know, integrate these kind of power moments in the things I would like to do. And for me, very important to emphasize is also that employer branding is not only, you know, focused on attraction, even though I know that in a lot of companies it's really tied to talent acquisition. It's really tied to the recruitment needs. But I also think that employer branding actually touches upon the whole HR journey, from really this attraction phase, but also to the onboarding I just mentioned with Yum Brands example, to the development, as well as also to the offboarding. So for example, a great example there is in one of my previous company, we really wanted to nail this alumni relation. So, you know, being connected still to the people who left the company, because I think especially in Berlin, or also probably in other countries, you have this term boomerang employee. So a person, you know, who left the company and then worked somewhere else because they wanted to have a different experience, and then came back and restarted to work at your company again. So keeping this alumni relations and keeping them aware of your company, promoting still your brand to these people can really have great effects. So I mentioned that I always really try to think about synergy effects between, you know, employer branding, internal comms, as well as employee engagement. And I'm really a big fan of these 4 power moments. So I thought, okay, I will give you today 3 examples how I implemented this in Vinted, or also in other companies I worked in. And one aim, or one thing, you know, which always worked really well, is to have a shared content calendar. And surprisingly, I don't know why it's like this, but every time I start in a company, I figure out that, you know, there is a content calendar owned by employer brand, then there is a content calendar owned by PR, then maybe also internal comms has its content calendar, then maybe also the workplace team has a different calendar. So there are a lot of things happening at different calendars, so to speak. And I always try to really bring them together, because I think a shared content calendar is a great and actually very quick fix to be aware of what your peers in the other teams are doing, and how you can also leverage this for your own employer branding needs. So for example, in one of my previous companies, we celebrated Employee Appreciation Day. I think it's a day in the US where, you know, employees are basically celebrate. I know that employees should be appreciated the whole year, but it's just, you know, a special day to make them even feel more appreciated. And what we did back then, it was pre-pandemic time, so everyone was in the office. So we created a letter from the CEO and a small chocolate present, everyone got this on the desk in the morning before they joined. And of course, it was more probably an internal engagement or employee engagement effort. But in the end of the day, people really felt appreciated and happy. And of course, they were, taking a picture, taking selfies with that and posting it on LinkedIn or other social media channels. So it really also had a great effect for your employer brand and, the costs you basically invested in this with writing a letter from your CEO and buying some chocolate was not, very high in the end of the day. So I think, these shared content calendars can really help you to uncover certain things the other teams are doing, which you can then jump on and also, let's say, exploit it for your employer branding needs. The second example bringing to the table today is think about communication guidelines and employer brand guidebooks. So often when I started in a company, I was the first person who was responsible for employer branding. And of course, there was not a lot of done beforehand. And somehow you need to create some guidance or some documentation about everything in terms of employer branding. And I feel like often you don't need to start from scratch, but you can basically look into all the policies and all the guidelines which are out there. For example, for sure, there are some PR guidelines or some social media guidelines, maybe from the marketing or social team, which you can build upon and also use this for your employer branding. And what I really liked in Renita's previous presentation was that she said, she's really stalking this company and stalking everywhere who works there. And I think this is also really important for employer branding to find out previously what's the vibe at the company and if people actually feel safe to communicate externally, because I think this could be really an issue if you enter a company and you figure out, okay, people are afraid to communicate or it's very restricted to communicate externally, then of course, it's more difficult to establish something in terms of employer branding. So I think this is something I really would encourage everyone to do their research on before you buy something or before you join something to be just aware of what you sign up for, basically. And the third example, and I think I also echo maybe Renita there a little bit, is do your research. I think she mentioned, so I call it here like brand discovery. Because for me, it's also really important to always ask the why, but I also see research a little bit like a two-way of street. On the one hand, you want to find out everything you need to, draft your employer branding strategy. But I think on the other hand, it's a great moment to connect and to also make people excited basically about the employer brand, because in the end of the day, you need your staff or you need your employees to, go out and spread the positive word of mouth about your company. And one example I have here is that in one of my previous companies, which we actually, I think we also want to launch Vinted, like not tell more, this ambassador program. So, people who are educated and equipped to go out and talk on behalf of your brand. So for example, in my previous company, we identified like different roles. So there was, for example, the host who was acquiring meetups and then was hosting these meetups, people who were drafting blog articles or were more active on social media. And we really treated them as our internal VIPs. So they got like visuals, they got an onboarding, They got an award for doing this, which was again, this elevation moment or this moment of pride we created there. But especially, I remember a moment with a tech team, which I think are always a little bit like harder to engage in all this branding stuff, because of course they think, oh, it's all, employer branding, it's all this fluffy branding stuff. I don't want to do this. I want to do my coding. Please don't disturb me. But I felt like when I really involved them in this research and really explained to them, hey, we are not just doing it because we want to create some fluffy content around this, but we want to we do this because we want to hire engineers with whom you can collaborate and with whom you can from whom you can also learn something. I think this really created this insight moment also for them, that they were then like really supportive. And I think once you really win the heart, to echo Renita there again, from also your tech stakeholders, you can really just win in the end of the day, because they will be so supportive. Yes, having said this, I think I'm at the end of my presentation, so really looking forward to your questions.
Marian, first questions this is about, could we get your slides? Because there are very useful information about your ideas, how to write a employer brand. If you could share your presentation, that could be great, because we have a special base of people, which are from different regions, and most part of them from Central Asia, but also outside our countries. So if you are ready to share maybe some slides, it could be great. And for participants too, we are now included, and we can share with you the video and the slides if you agree. That could be great.
Totally. I'm totally happy to share the slides. And I would also recommend this book, which I mentioned. If you don't want to buy it, the authors also have a homepage with some resources. I think you just need to sign up with your email. Because they also, published other books about change management. So it's also really great resource additionally.
That could be great. I think we could write emails later about it. So we are ready to include different links, because we all the time discuss with our speakers. If they want to share any additional useful information, that could be great. I think for our HR community there. And I also want to share with you some ideas that during your presentation. It's what Uwe also said. In my former company, we had reels of the new employees showing on all screens across our branches. So this is idea take into account from the one slide. Marian, I have one question, but if any participants have questions, please could you type them in our chat. I have one question for you. If you talk about external and internal communication concerning employer brand, what is the best way to manage them in one way? You just make a special calendar, and what is the best ideas and how to incentive people to making a multiple effect of your sharing. So you have some particular event inside company, you decided to talk about it outside in your Facebook pages, LinkedIn pages, and so on. But how to motivate your employees also sharing it? What is the best way to align in them? Because I think we could share it inside companies, but what could motivate them to share outside companies?
Yeah, I think, to be honest, there is of course not a perfect way. I think it also really depends in what culture. So what's your company culture? A little bit, but I feel like one thing which always works quite well is when you tell the employees what's also in for them, that they don't do this additionally to their normal job, for which they, of course, for this additional work, they are probably not paid for. But one way which always really works well is to tell them to also, that they also build their personal brand basically with this. you know, that they are getting exposure with this also on social channels or LinkedIn. And I think this really helps, because I think, you know, maybe compared to our parents' generation, we are not, you know, working all our lives at the same company, but we also, you know, change companies. We need to somehow make connection, build our own brand to get the next gig, or maybe, you know, one day you want to go freelance. Of course, you need to have some, you know, context or contacts to start with. I think this is one thing. Probably, I would say this works more with, you know, people working on the business side, so marketing or sales people, of course. I feel like with tech people who anyways, you know, get thousands of emails every day if they want to join a new company. I think with them, a little bit more like probably a gamification works, where you have like, for example, an internal dashboard where you see, okay, this post or this blog article about a certain tech topic got this many readers, or got this many views, or got this many shares. I feel like this is a little bit more attractive probably to them. These, I think, are the two things which are basically on top of my head.
Okay, that's great. Though the two questions from participants: who exactly should lead and own employee engagement and employer branding? It's a provocative question, I think, but what is your answer to this question? Should lead.
Yeah, no, I really love how engaged Uber is. A really great question there. I think it's a little bit like a chicken or the egg question, because in I don't know, in my career I reported to like HR leaders, but I also reported to marketing leaders. So I think it really depends a little bit what's your stake there. I think when I started my career, I felt like HR can learn a lot from marketing, because I think back in the days, you know, it was like different. You just were looking at applications and then you were hiring people, and now we realized, okay, we also need to market this position. But I think also HR caught up a lot there, and they are on the same level, so to speak. So I don't have a perfect answer for this. Yeah.
Okay. The second question is from Balnura Vazova. You mentioned what it's hard to get tech specialists actively involved in employer brand building. How do you achieve it? That maybe you have some key methods, secrets, life hacks, how engage tech people to promote in your employer brand?
Yeah. So I think probably it's not a life hack, I would say, but I think what's very important for them is to understand the why behind this. Because I think it's wrong to simply go to them and say, hey, we want to do employer branding. Here are some visuals, and this is the copy you can use, and go for it. Because I think then they don't feel taken seriously, and they want to have a stake in this, and also co-create or contribute to this. And I think if they understand why they are doing it, because, you know, the talent market is scarce, we need to hire, I don't know, additional senior engineers. And when they understand that with this, they, you know, will also learn and improve their own skills, I think they are much more supportive on this. So I think the why is very important there to explain why we are doing this. And of course, or I assume often this also goes, you know, with numbers or data, because, you know, tech people are probably a little bit more data driven than other people. So if you just go there and say, hey, we want to do employer branding because it's nice to show our culture, they will be like, okay, I'm out here. So but if you show them some numbers, why it's hard to find certain employees, what you have tried, what were like conversion rates, and things like this, I think you get much easier probably their buy-in.
Okay. Thank you, Marian. We have some comments from Uva. Well, thank you for your engagement, relocation engagement in our discussion today. Marian decided to add something because try to discuss the situation. There was maybe a good collaboration between marketing and HR. Is from my perspective, because I'm also working in the employer brand area, the best way to collaborate. But the first, my answers, who is responsible lead employee engagement? Firstly, I want to say CEO of the company. Firstly, it should be one of the leaders who want to promote a company outside and inside, who want to lead in the employee engagement and employer brand and show what its importance of companies. Maybe also idea could be taken into account. If you sell this idea to a CEO, after that it could be much more easier to sell this idea everybody. As discussed, for example, tech experts, I know what in some companies, if a CEO of the company posted some vacancies on his LinkedIn page or his Facebook page, it's much more easier to ask any other employees, please, could you post it? And when your pages help us to attract the participants of your team with which you are working now. So, Marian, I hope we can stay in touch, the theory for the future and LinkedIn at least. So thank you for deciding to share the presentation. Thanks everybody who came to our webinar. As I said, this is the webinar which we provide under the umbrella of Embrace HR Awards. This is the international HR Awards, which based in Uzbekistan, at the heart of Central Asia. But we are working with international experts there. And in the future, we are waiting for more different webinars with different HR topics. There we could share some ideas about employer branding, recruitment, about well-being, and so on. Look for our pages, Embrace pages in LinkedIn, in Facebook, and also maybe on my own pages, Tatiana Kohl. I also share all the information about it, and hope to see her again in press, and hope to see maybe a little bit alive. Thanks, Renita. Thanks, Marian. Hope to see you anytime in your journey, and my best wishes for you and all this week. Thank you for everybody who joined us this day.
Thank you so much for the invite.
Thank you.
Okay.
They will see all.
It's bye.